The lights burned white against the studio floor, every reflection sharp as a blade. Pete Hegseth leaned forward, his voice already carrying the rhythm of dominance. "Congresswoman, answer the question. Just answer the question." His tone sliced through the air like it owned the room. But across from him sat Jasmine Crockett, still unshaken, eyes locked in calm defiance. She didn't flinch. She didn't blink. The audience watching from home could feel the tension humming through the screen. Social feeds erupted in real time, hashtags spun up, clips looped within seconds, commentators rushed to interpret what was unfolding. A Fox debate, yes, but something deeper, a clash of temperaments, of truths. Hegseth smirked, mistaking silence for surrender. "You see, that's what's wrong with your side," he said, gesturing broadly. "You talk about respect but can't defend your own hypocrisy." His words dripped with certainty, the practiced rhythm of a man used to controlling every beat of a conversation. Crockett finally inhaled, slow and deliberate, as if grounding herself in centuries of struggle and grace. Her stillness became a statement in itself. The studio lights caught the glint in her eyes, steel wrapped in serenity. Somewhere a producer leaned forward. Somewhere else, a nation did too. The silence stretched longer than television usually allows, and in that pause, the illusion of control began to shift. Hegseth straightened in his chair, a flicker of unease breaking through the confidence. Viewers watching sensed it instantly. The storm had changed direction. Every scroll, every tweet, every heartbeat waited for the next line. Crockett's composure wasn't a weakness. It was a warning. And then, just as Hegseth opened his mouth to push further, she leaned forward, voice low but unshakably clear. What she said next stopped the entire segment cold. Hours before that tense broadcast, Fox producers knew they were setting up a collision course. Pete Hegseth, the network's pride and provocateur, built a reputation on dominating his guests, interjecting, outmaneuvering, controlling the tempo. To many of his viewers, he was the man who said what they wished they could. But this time, his guest wasn't just another talking head. Jasmine Crockett wasn't coming to perform. She was coming to be heard. The topic seemed simple enough: accountability, policy. The same political tug-of-war that fills cable airwaves every night. Yet beneath the surface, it was about something far deeper. Who gets to define the truth on national television? One side, armed with volume and bravado, the other, grounded in facts, grace, and quiet conviction. When the cameras went live, that tension exploded. Each word Hegseth spoke carried the weight of expectation, his audience waiting for another gotcha, another viral takedown. Crockett, meanwhile, embodied a different kind of strength. She didn't interrupt. She didn't rush. Every pause was calculated, every glance deliberate. Viewers could feel the contrast, the pulse of something that went beyond politics. It was performance versus purpose. And that's what made this moment matter. It wasn't just a political debate. It was a cultural one. It asked the question millions of Americans wrestle with. Does truth still stand a chance in a world that rewards the loudest voice instead of the wisest one? If you believe in seeing both truth and courage collide on screen, make sure you hit subscribe right now. Because what happens next will redefine how power is handled on live TV. The Fox control room buzzed with quiet anxiety. Producers whispered in headsets. Analysts prepared their talking points. They thought they knew where this conversation was headed. After all, the script was predictable. Crockett would defend, Hegseth would attack, and the host would walk away with another notch of victory. But what they hadn't calculated was the unteachable art of composure, the power of a person who refuses to play by the rules of chaos. Crockett's calm was unsettling, not passive, but disarming. It forced Hegseth to talk faster, louder, as if trying to fill the growing silence that swallowed his confidence. And for viewers watching across the country, from classrooms to living rooms, the debate began to feel like something more than television. It became a mirror, a reflection of who holds their ground when the storm hits. This wasn't just an interview. It was a test of composure under fire. And just when it seemed she was cornered, the tables turned. Pete Hegseth didn't stumble into the spotlight. He carved his way there. Decorated Army veteran, Ivy League graduate, and Fox News firebrand, he wore confidence like armor. Every segment, Every panel, every interview became a battlefield where he dictated the rules. His fans loved it, the intensity, the swagger, the unshakable certainty that he was always in control. To them, Hegseth wasn't just a host. He was a warrior defending their worldview against what he called the noise of the left. He knew how to command a room. His tone, honed by years of debates and monologues, could slice through opposition like a polished blade. He thrived on confrontation. Where others hesitated, he advanced. Every raised eyebrow, every smirk, every pointed question was part of the choreography. The audience didn't tune in for nuance. They tuned in for dominance. But that mastery came with a blind spot. When every guest becomes an opponent, empathy dies quietly in the corner. And so, when Jasmine Crockett sat across from him, composed and unprovoked, he misread her calm as weakness. To him, silence was surrender. To her, it was power. Behind the camera, producers admired his ease. The practiced rhythm of a man who had never truly been challenged on moral ground. He believed he could read every move before it happened, that every reaction could be steered. It wasn't arrogance born of malice. It was confidence bred in a world that rewards control over curiosity. And yet something in her eyes unsettled him. A stillness he couldn't interpret, a quiet that didn't yield. He pressed on, confident, convinced the familiar pattern would repeat itself. He thought it was just another debate, until the silence hit harder than any argument. Long before Jasmine Crockett ever stepped into the halls of Congress, she was standing in courtrooms where justice was rarely on her side. She wasn't born into privilege or comfort. She built her way up through grit, long hours, and the stubborn refusal to stay silent when silence was expected. As a public defender in Texas, she faced rooms where her voice was often the only thing standing between the powerless and the system that forgot them. She learned early that speaking truth didn't always win applause, but it always mattered. Every case, every late-night brief, every cross-examination sharpened something inside her. A calm born not from ease, but from endurance. When others shouted, she learned to listen. When others panicked, she found patience. Her strength wasn't noise, it was precision. And that skill, that inner equilibrium, would one day carry her far beyond the courtroom walls. By the time she entered politics, Crockett had already faced storms louder than any Fox News panel. She'd been underestimated before, by colleagues, by opponents, by pundits who mistook her composure for compliance. Each underestimation became fuel. Each dismissal reminded her that dignity, when wielded right, could be the sharpest weapon in the room. Her journey wasn't about ambition. It was about representation. About standing where others said she didn't belong and turning that very space into proof that she did. She didn't come to Congress to play by the rules of power. She came to rewrite them, piece by piece, with a steadiness that unnerved those who thrived on chaos. So when the cameras turned on, and Pete Hegseth leaned forward with that trademark smirk, Crockett didn't see intimidation. She saw another test. Another room where grace would have to speak louder than ego. So when the pressure mounted, Crockett didn't react. She recalibrated. The air inside the studio tightened, as if even the lights could sense what was coming. Pete Hegseth leaned forward, eyebrows arched. Voice raised just enough to sound authoritative, but not enough to seem aggressive. A balancing act he'd perfected. "Congresswoman, let's get real here," he said, cutting across her mid-sentence. "You're dodging the facts? The American people deserve straight answers." Crockett didn't blink. "I agree," she said evenly. "They do deserve straight answers." The line landed softly, but the restraint in her tone carried its own defiance. Hegseth smirked, confident he had the upper hand. He turned toward the camera, his voice booming now, the performance for his audience in full swing. "See, they always pivot, always shift the blame." "That's the problem, Pete," Crockett interjected. Still calm, "I'm not here to win an argument. I'm here to tell the truth." That single sentence shifted something invisible in the room. It wasn't a rebuttal. It was a refusal to play his game. Viewers watching from home began to sense it too. Twitter threads erupted. "She's not taking the bait. She's playing chess while he's swinging a bat." Hegseth pressed harder, stacking interruptions like dominoes. No. You don't get to change the subject." "I asked you, and I'm answering," she said, eyes locked on him, unflinching. The steadiness in her tone was unnerving, like a lighthouse refusing to move even as the storm surged around it. Behind the camera, the director whispered, "Stay on her. Don't cut. Stay on her." The close-up revealed what words couldn't: the quiet intensity in her face, the confidence of someone who's had to earn every inch of space she occupies. Hegseth shifted in his chair, talking faster now, trying to regain rhythm. "So, you're saying your party's policies aren't responsible for this chaos?" Because that's— Crockett tilted her head slightly, almost pitying. "What I'm saying is chaos doesn't scare me. I've lived through it. I've cleaned up after it. I've seen what happens when leaders trade compassion for applause." The audience fell silent for a breath that felt like forever. It wasn't just a counterpoint. It was a mirror held up to everything wrong with the spectacle of political debate. Hegseth forced a laugh, but it rang hollow. "Well, Congresswoman, that's one way to dodge accountability." She smiled, not sarcastically, not smugly, just enough to remind him that calm could cut deeper than cruelty. "Accountability," she said softly, "starts with how we treat each other when we disagree." The moment hung there, fragile and electric, as if the entire room was deciding what to do with it. Somewhere in the control booth, a producer mouthed, "Wow." The camera panned back, capturing both of them, the aggressor and the calm center he couldn't shake. The lines were drawn, the tension unbearable, and then one line changed everything. The tension was now a living thing, coiled tight in the air between them. Even the hum of the studio lights seemed to dim as Crockett leaned in, her posture unshaken, her breath measured. Pete Hegseth tried to fill the silence with noise, tossing rapid-fire jabs like confetti. "You talk about leadership, but your side has no answers. You've got slogans, not solutions." You've got— her voice sliced through his mid-sentence, calm, precise, unmistakably deliberate. "Pete, you mistake volume for value. Just because you're loud doesn't mean you're right." The audience, both in studio and online, felt it immediately. 1,000 live chat hearts and emojis surged up the screen. The silence wasn't empty. It was charged, vibrating with the collective gasp of an audience that knew they'd just witnessed a shift in power. Hegseth blinked, the faintest flicker of confusion crossing his face. He laughed it off, the kind of chuckle men use when they feel the ground slipping beneath them. "Oh, come on, Congresswoman. That's a nice soundbite." "But it's not a soundbite," Crockett interrupted, her voice steady, but rising just enough to command the moment. "It's a pattern. Every time a woman speaks with reason, someone tries to drown her out with noise. But reason doesn't yell, it endures." The line landed like a thunderclap. The control room erupted in whispers, producers exchanging glances, the camera operators instinctively zooming in on her face. She wasn't grandstanding. She was anchored. The conviction in her voice was like a force of nature, not angry, but undeniable. Online, clips started circulating before the interview was even over. Crockett schooling Fox News host live. "This is how you hold your ground." The hashtags began to trend. Hashtag Crockett.com, hashtag truth over volume, hashtag reason wins. Hegseth tried to recover, waving his hand dismissively. "Look, Congresswoman, people are tired of lectures. They want results, not moral speeches." She met his gaze squarely. "And people are tired of being manipulated into thinking compassion is weakness." The words hit him harder than expected. For a heartbeat, he looked human. The facade of confident control cracked just enough for the cameras to catch it. He shuffled a few papers, stammered slightly. That's not what I meant." Crockett didn't pounce. She paused. "Let the silence do the work." "You did mean it," she said softly. "You meant every word. Because it's easier to mock empathy than to practice it." The crowd, even those in the studio, couldn't hold back. A few claps broke out, quickly swallowed by a nervous producer motioning to stay quiet. But it was too late. The energy had turned, and Crockett felt it. The shift. The empowerment that comes when truth finally takes the mic back from theatrics. Her tone remained steady, eyes unwavering. "You keep talking about chaos," she said. "But chaos isn't what scares you. What scares you is a woman who refuses to break her composure while dismantling your argument in real time." A ripple went through the audience, Half disbelief, half awe. It was surgical. Not cruel, just absolute. Hegseth tried again, fumbling for footing. Oh please, this isn't about gender. Don't pull that card. Crockett tilted her head slightly, a small, patient smile forming. It's not a card, Pete. It's the reality of every woman who's ever had to stay calm while being talked over by someone who mistakes interruption for intellect. The studio froze. The control room fell silent. Even the ticker on the live chat hesitated for a moment, as if everyone watching was holding their breath. Then the dam broke. Comments flooded in. She said it. That's the line. Play that again. Crockett leaned back in her chair, unbothered, unflinching. You said earlier the American people deserve straight answers, she said. So here's one. The truth doesn't need to shout to be heard. It just needs the courage to stand in the noise and not flinch. Boom. It wasn't loud, but it was seismic. Even Hegseth knew it. His smirk faltered. His practiced charm couldn't mask the sudden quiet that fell over him. For a few seconds, all you could hear was the hum of the cameras and the faint tapping of a producer's pen hitting the desk. Then, somewhere off-screen, someone whispered what millions were thinking. Damn. On Twitter, the clip hit 1 million views within minutes. Crockett versus chaos. Composure wins. Even journalists who rarely commented on such exchanges were posting it, calling it a masterclass in grace under fire. And through it all, Crockett didn't gloat. She simply folded her notes, looked at Hegseth, and said quietly, almost tenderly, "This isn't about winning. Pete, it's about remembering that leadership isn't a performance." That was the checkmate. No shouting, no spectacle. Just truth distilled to its purest form, spoken with the calm of someone who has seen too much to be shaken. The host forced a laugh, pretending to move on, but the damage was done. His voice carried the thin tremor of someone who'd realized too late that he'd lost control of his own show. And the world saw it happen in real time. The camera pulled back, catching Crockett in perfect composure as the host stumbled into the next segment. His tone uncertain, the audience still reeling. But the echo of that exchange didn't end when the cameras cut. The clip detonated across the internet before the credits even rolled. Within hours, #Crockett.com was everywhere, stitched into TikToks, remixed into YouTube Shorts, even sampled over lo-fi beats on Twitter. People couldn't stop replaying that exact moment when she said, "Reason doesn't yell, it endures." It became the quote of the day, the week, maybe the year. Commentators on every network weighed in. Some framed it as a rare masterclass in composure. Others called it a cultural correction, proof that empathy can be power. On the late-night circuit, comedians replayed the exchange with exaggerated expressions, mock-shouting Hegseth's interruptions before pausing, wide-eyed, to imitate Crockett's quiet precision. The audience roared every time. Even conservative outlets, though reluctant, couldn't ignore the metrics. Her clip outperformed every Fox News segment that night. The irony was delicious. A guest meant to be cornered had turned into the headline. On social media, thousands of young women, law students, activists, teachers, even nurses coming off overnight shifts shared side-by-side reaction videos. This is how you hold your ground. This is how you fight without shouting. One viral post read, "She didn't destroy him. She disarmed him." Memes followed. Reaction GIFs. Think pieces titled "The Day Calm Went Viral" and "The Quiet Revolution of Jasmine Crockett." Political podcasts spent entire episodes unpacking the psychology of her poise. Even academics chimed in, calling it a case study in rhetorical control under pressure. But the reaction wasn't just applause. It was a relief. Viewers who'd grown numb to the noise of political shouting saw something refreshing. Conviction without chaos. It felt like a reset button for a country addicted to outrage. In a landscape built on viral fury, Crockett's calm had become a viral event. And yet, beneath the trending tags and the endless replays, something deeper was beginning to move. Something cultural. Something generational. It wasn't just about a viral moment anymore. It was about what that moment represented. A hunger for authenticity, dignity, and strength that didn't have to shout to be heard. Yet beneath the trending tags lay something deeper, a cultural shift. In the end, what lingered wasn't the argument. It was the quiet. The image of Jasmine Crockett sitting under studio lights, unflinching, became more than a viral clip. It became a lesson. A reminder that in an age addicted to outrage, restraint itself can be radical. Her calm wasn't passivity. It was power, the kind that forces reflection instead of reaction. It was the opposite of what political media expects. No shouting match, no theatrics, no chaos. Just presence. And in that presence, millions found something they'd been craving. Permission to be steady in a world that rewards noise. Commentators would later say that Crockett didn't just win the debate, she redefined what victory looked like. Not dominance, not humiliation, but dignity. The kind of composure that says you can throw every insult you want, and I'll still stand taller than your noise. For viewers who'd grown weary of the shouting, this moment hit differently. Parents showed the clip to their kids. Teachers used it in classrooms to illustrate emotional intelligence in public life. It wasn't about left or right anymore. It was about grace under fire, the rarest kind of strength. Because in the end, true courage isn't the loudest voice in the room. It's the one that refuses to lose its humanity while speaking truth. And as the lights faded and the studio chatter dimmed, one truth echoed louder than all the punditry that followed. You don't have to shout to be heard. Because sometimes, silence is the loudest revolution. Pete Hegseth tried to trap Jasmine Crockett, but ended up trapped by his own arrogance. What was meant to be a spectacle of dominance turned into a masterclass in grace. Crockett didn't just win the exchange. She reminded an entire nation that calm doesn't mean weak, and silence doesn't mean surrender. It means control. If this moment inspires you, if you believe calm strength should never be underestimated, like this video, share it with someone who needs to see it, and comment your thoughts below. Let's make dignity go viral, because what we just witnessed wasn't a debate. It was a shift, proof that the loudest person in the room isn't always the strongest. Because this isn't just politics. It's a reminder that truth still has a voice. And sometimes, that voice whispers louder than a shout ever could.